Rough edit. Okay. I just wanted to talk to you about my martial art journey in life. A lot of people don't know, but I'm going to try to lay out a detailed account here as short as possible. So when I was about 7 or 8, started watching a lot of Kung Fu, seeing that on TV, hearing about other friends of mine taking karate or taekwondo, and I began to practice on my own, like something I saw out of a movie. Now, this is the nature of Gong, and we can talk about it later, but it is completely natural to you. As Miyamoto Musashi would say, do not use moves that are unnatural to you. So you have to practice or train everything you do. So each martial art is a style of movement. Tong Sao is no style of movement, but the opening of Gong first. And then we teach you about technique, because you want to get to Gong first. Forget the technique. The technique is stupid. The understanding of what you are doing. You know, you don't play a standard blues riff and get famous. You gotta do something unique. So, back to where I was 8 years old, I had a neighbor move in next door to me who taught Taekwondo. His name was David King. He was a 3rd degree black belt, and I believe for his 4th degree black belt, it used to be a requirement that you had to have your own students before you could open a dojo, you know. So he had his own school in his backyard. He lived right next door to me. He was about 18 at the time, and he had 2 younger sisters, Marianne and Nora? Can't remember. Anyway, King, and their father, I think he was David King Jr. So they ended up moving to Mexico, not so much longer. But I used to go over to his house and do all my kicks and punches and yada yada and blah blah blah. And he used to really be brutal to me. He was a lot better than my stepfather at the time, who they almost had a little scuffle at one point. But anyway, got rid of both of them. All abusive martial artists there, you know. They're always not understanding what the idea of what is combat for. So the higher levels of martial principle is what I teach. So then I did Taekwondo. I have no idea what the style was when I went later to WTF form with Hank Giles, 8th degree black belt in Florida. He taught a whole different group of barely kata. You know, when I was training with David, those katas were like, wow, that's crazy. And then you what? You know. So I don't know what form of Taekwondo it was, but it died out apparently. So I went to mate with Okinawa-te later, and through a couple of different cities. So I knew pretty much every Okinawa-te instructor in the entire world at the time, you know, before 1991, and went to train with all of them, of course, because they all have different interpretations of what Gordon Doversola taught. I heavily focused on my training under Ray Kinsner, so that's the majority of my training is from Gordon Doversola, John Hannerhan, Ray Kinsner to me. But then I went to train with everybody else, Larry Delano and Mike Pacina and Tom Pillsbury and Glenn Klepek and Andre and everybody else. Whoever, some people closed their schools, but, we tried to help them out. And a lot of changes happened in Okinawa-te, and I just kind of stuck to exactly what I was doing. For about 3 years, I started teaching at MacDill Air Force Base in Florida, Tampa, Florida, and called up Shihan and Richard at the time, and because I had built a website talking about Okinawa-te and all the methods that I was taught, which apparently I was like a Wateru third-degree black belt, or almost a third-degree black belt. So, Lance Court, Lance Kawasaki, all those guys, Mark Galvin, to me, they were my teachers for a long time. When I moved to Florida, I started doing Taekwondo again under Hank Giles, and then started teaching, stopped and did Aikido for about 4 to 6 months. Guy was phenomenal. Learned everything about Aikido, Iriminagi, understanding the transition of what combat is to Mori Ueshiba, and just, retransforming my mind about Taoist principles, universal truths. And that's why it was like this. It was a period of a year, basically, when I realized, and that's the best way to say it. So, you say that all the time, but I realized what? So I wrote a book about it, and I called it Dr. Origin, and, I'm not that great of a writer or a storyteller. The greatest storyteller is history. So, anyway, back to my martial art journey. Let's see. So while I was in Florida, I also trained with Rich Mooney. He was a Qigong white tiger crane, mostly Qigong. But the Chin Na that I learned there was absolutely incredible. But he was a practitioner of hypnosis, Qigong hypnosis and Tai Chi hypnosis. If you're not familiar with all that kind of stuff, it's another level up, the PhD realms. So I mean, you can be a martial art master in 5 different ways, roughly. I mean, and then there's a mirror version that says, no, we're just about the same. So there's a lot of arts that are kind of the same. For instance, all arts that practice sparring, they're about the same. If you think sparring is combat, you've got another thing coming. Sparring is an understanding of combat. It's a dimension of combat. But supposedly, if you can do the hypnosis tricks, then you can hypnotize somebody. Even Karate do My Way of Life. Who was that? Was that Funakoshi? No. Yeah. Anyway, they all kind of mention it, but there was a fight, and he was all he did was ki or something like that, and the guy was just caught in that OODA loop. OODA. So he just capitalized on it. So he hypnotized somebody, and dominance and submission play a lot of principles in moving around in combat. So that's why you can understand combat really from the body itself. It can teach it to you. So you have a weak side and a strong side. Now, some people say, for instance, there's 2 splits on martial arts. There's a better way to protect yourself. Put your weakness out in front, and then whoosh, hit them with your strong side, like the Princess Bride. I know something you don't. I am not left-handed. Ha ha. But that sacrifices yourself. Like, why would you go out to fight with? It's just a question. So another group of people say, no, strong side forward, protect your weakness. Because why are we fighting? Exactly. We want to know. We don't know why we're fighting. What's going on, huh? Hey, but whoever comes in here, you're all going to die. This is the principle of warfare. Your ideals, because they're or more forgiving or more oriented towards groups, you will survive. This is a political principle too, and it's where a lot of political parties don't understand. Well, sometimes they're talking about the exact same thing in 4 different ways. It's hilarious. That's why I don't get involved in politics, but do vote for me for president in 2020. Anyway, I digress, but do read my book. Anyway, if you want to learn the secrets of life and the universe and everything, please contact me. You know how to get to me. drorigin.com. So there I was. I'd learned Aikido, and I went to Rich Silat and White Tiger Crane Fist and Qigong, and I started to learn this hypnosis version of Qigong, which didn't know what it was, but he told me how to start, and he taught me stand in one posture. So when you understand how the body moves internally, you can start to find things that you didn't understand were hurt, and that's called internal kung fu. So I've been doing that. I did Taoist Tai Chi for a while, which is Tai Chi Society, and that was like no impact, just the movements. Didn't really get what I was doing there. It was about 2 years ago that, 2016 to be precise, that way before October, but just saying, because I started my book 17 years ago. So anyway, 17 years before I had written. So it's not important to do the math afterwards in storytelling. Okay, let's jump to the end. Came back to California, started back in Okinawa-te, Lance, Kawasaki, tried to visit the Wate-ru side. I don't know how whatever happened in the past is whatever. So I don't know. I wasn't welcome. But I did that in a lot of Okinawan schools. I did a seminar in a Wate-ru school in Florida. Didn't ever get to talk to Jim and John Graydon. You imagine that? But I met Scott Kelby, the dirty tricks or down and dirty Photoshop tricks. That guy was at a seminar, and he said, here's the tape of Joe Louis getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. So then I got Joe's contact info and called him up, and he was driving his convertible, and he was having a good old time, I guess. He doesn't know Qigong. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, Joe. He's just mad because I can beat him up. Anyway, did a lot of other stuff back in California. Tried to open up a few schools. People are jealous or something. They don't want you to heal the nations. So, that was an interesting number, 1414. Did you think I planned it out, people? It's not a planned event. It's just me falling down. Ooh, Tai Chi. So then now we come to Tai Chi. The acceptance of all things in the universe. Fortuitous. You will see the nature of life play out in your own body. And then I began to train myself alone. I got a few students on the way, mostly women, because men aren't interested in healing. Can you imagine? Anyway, what else? Let's see. So no, I've been researching. On YouTube, I've learned every escape technique from every fighting system, and I have my favorites and stuff like Marcello and Dantes. I got friends along the way, but men don't care about friendships. They only care about their treasure. So we're looking for the groups, the family-oriented. That's why China is so big, because they were like, hey, let's take care of all of you somehow. I don't want to know the whole story, but they're trying. In America, it seems like fight for yourself and give some leftovers to other people. Hey, don't stop taking our money, man. How about 1% more? Just 1% more. 1% more. 1%. Okay, that's all my proposal is. Just 1%. That way, if you make 20,000, you're not talking about $1,000. Talking about 100. Okay, quit blabbing. So the snake, connotations. Oh, we got yoga in the church now. Oops. What does that mean? Does that mean the evil people? Well, in British tradition, it's more likely that they tried to religiousize the pagans. So they're going into the bars and they're playing Christian music in the bar. And they're I don't know if they're paying for it or what they're... But this is like penetrating the lost. It says when Jesus began his ministry, he went to Zebulun and Naphtali. Do you guys know who those brothers were? They were like the two cut off extra fingers that you don't have anymore. Because they were like the weak little... We don't care about those guys. Okay, can you imagine how fast you could type, though, with 12 fingers? And 12 toes, yes, exactly. Yes, because we were born that way. If you divide the body and you understand the ancient version of it, the perfection, you'll understand why we get people with two heads and why we get pinky extras and 6 fingers. Anyway, I digress. This is not a lecture on life. It's my journal on who I was as a martial artist. Anyway, let's see. Lots of pain. Did some Tang Sudo work. Mostly teaching. Didn't really. I just helped the guy out and did a bunch of DVD copies for him and stuff like that. But when and that's where I met Juklum, Southern Praying Mantis, Henry Puyi. So the ligament strength, the key, and being able to take that kick to the groin, all that magical stuff is not magic. Well, I mean, the real magic is not real, but magic is not magic real. So when you expect to see magic, you don't expect it's real. I hope not. It better not be. But anyway, magic was penetrated by the Christians. A good friend of mine, actually, Andre Cole. I have pictures of him standing next to me, and I see him every week. Anyway, I visit him once a week at least. Sorry. It's good to visit your masters if you can. Well, not masters. Inspirations. Let's put it that way. Inspirations. Go back to your inspiration and maybe check your work. Go to your teacher and go, what about this move? And oh yeah, well, Yeah, my favorite version of getting that done was Okinawa-te, of course. I used to do it to everybody. They'd come to me and go, "What about this move?" And I'd be like, "No, you're not. You didn't listen to the principle. You're not doing it right." Like they missed the basics or something. So there's a bunch of basics I'm going to go through later the way I learned it, and give it to you for free online if you find it. Only if you find it and you want to click on it. Who cares? It's just $1 billion story. Who cares? Anyway, that's why I found the jacuzzi, and I found all the principles of life and healing, and I put all of those combat arts and healing arts together in one thing called Tong Sao, which is an ancient concept of karate, or the ancient word for karate. Karate. Please pronounce it correctly in the province you live in. Okay, thank you. Some people get offended if you don't pronounce the country correctly. Like Iraq? Yes, Iraq. Okay, well, sorry. Let's agree on a principle that we will try. From now on, especially because we have the internet and you can hear the recorded version of how to pronounce it. You don't have to sound like this no more. Yeah. But we can do it for fun. Keep the Westerns alive. Well, that's what they tried to do. Why was the West so nostalgic? Well, it was so amazingly something. Well, they made bad TV stories, bad cable stories, bad movies, and then it started to get slightly better. You know, Young Guns came out, and it was like, hey, they're using a lot more of the technical stuff about the West. So you didn't find things like coffee cups of Starbucks on their set. Anyway, Martin. So combat has always been communication. Now, I've skipped a whole martial art because it's the most important. This is where you all kind of jump off and go, listen to this part. But the 222s, yes. So as a Bible-believing Christian, I happen to read the Bible and believe that it said, if you don't read these words, you will not have life. Deuteronomy 8:3, John 5, the whole thing. It's a weird interpretation. Ephesians 6:63, or no, 6:17, and John 6:63. So anyway, Hebrews 3:7. Bam. Let's punch that one. Communication is warfare. If you are caught into a teacher's communicative grasp, just because they say something doesn't mean it's true. So, trickery and confusion, especially with words, is common. I find this in business all the time. Every time I go into a different form of business, I go, where's the work you're doing? No, it's just like this fluff of pretension that says, well, let's try to support each other to have these jobs. And I believe that is what work is all about. So we're trying to make a company better and trying not to lose everybody and trying to keep everybody employed. I think that's the majority of the problem is once you hire somebody and you realize, I'm not getting what I want, instead of killing them, why not embrace them? Lower their salary and be like, you know what, we're not impressed with your work and we're going to cut your salary in half. Which is a living rate, or, the minimum rate. And watch them shoot off fireworks in different directions and help other departments do. Wait, like a giant tree, we can see humanity. For the correct posture we can give it. Oh, even with that missing finger. Oops, let's pretend it's still there. What would we do then? Oh, well, maybe we would shift. So there are logical structures in the body that make you extremely powerful, but if you don't develop them, it really doesn't help. Now, how you develop them is actually natural when you start training. So for instance, if you're rolling on the ground in jiu-jitsu, you're activating a level of chi, right? So that's why my bed has the chi activation method. So if you want to just get health, you can just activate your chi in the lowest amount possible. You're basically doing it, except there's something up here that says don't, and that's how you stop your healing, and you just have to put it on the do button. Not supposed to do, but do because why? Because beauty compels you. And you can see the holes for where they are. When someone comes at you, you understand the Tai Chi principle of becoming nothing. So when you interpret that into these other martial arts and you go back to spar, sometimes the gloves can get in the way because now we're bouncing back and forth instead of saying, hey, what? Huh? 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 And then from here, now we're in a different time frame. Whoosh! Ooh!
You didn't even move, sir.
Yes, OODA loop. Now, when I learned the OODA loop, I saw it in myself first, in Qigong. So you have to practice Qigong, and most martial arts actually do practice Qigong, but they practice these steppy versions of it. Like a Qi here, Gong here, Qigong, Qi. But what about here? You didn't. What about between? Oh, no gong there, but gong here. Yeah, that's no good. You got holes in your gong. You make a sound. Yeah, it blows away most people, but not the master. So develop your gong first, then learn all the techniques of the master, then teach him something new. A new song. And with the Tong developed, I started doing research in history and all that stuff after I had learned all these things and realized, put all that together and put all my counseling training together, which I kind of skipped over. So in 2003, after I had fully read the Bible, I had a kind of a weird, not 2003, but 1999, I believe, because I had read the Bible before. And it was somewhere around after my daughter died. Moved back to California and finished reading, hearing the Bible. And then all of a sudden I had this odd ability. And what I didn't realize is that I had PTSD from all the trauma. And that's kind of why I began to study it. So, and the ties between combat and counseling are just phenomenal. That's why I wrote my first book. So apparently you're not supposed to read that till you all get to heaven, so no big deal. Anyway, I gotta shorten this up. Learned all that, wrote those books. Hopefully I'm gonna cut your hearts in half when you're gonna go split the hares and the goats, yes, and bring all the lambs to heaven. Well, that's the plan anyway. Read my journal of the doctor on Amazon. Follow along on YouTube. I see what you did there.